Hello guys, thank you very much for tuning in to loam.com. Robert here, and today in this video I may be showcasing a first look at the next revolution in mountain bike design. Canyon, Synthase and Lightville have partnered up with their KIS Keep It Stable technology, and we're going to show you all about it and take it out onto the trails here in the south of France. Let's check it out. So what is the KIS system and what does it do? Originally the design came from Joe at Synthase, trying to solve a problem when transporting or storing a bike with the front wheel just turning, because there's nothing to resist it. But what that developed into is a system that they are hoping to sort of offset the instability that you can get in the steering of a bike. That just comes from the natural, the effects of wheel flop, the effects of weight balance, not having enough kind of weight on the front wheel compared to the back wheel, which means that it goes light. And just generally they're trying to increase the stability of the bicycle, of its steering, so that you can ride more effectively, more aggressively, and also when you're tired, more safely. So what the system is effectively a spring, a couple of pieces of rope, and a cam that's attached to your steer tube. So when your front wheel turns to the side, you extend or put tension into one of the pieces of rope, which then pulls on the spring and extends it, and effectively just creates a counter force to bring the steering back to straight. Because it's on a cam as opposed to just a circular kind of clamp on the steerer, it has a slightly different kind of torque curve depending on where you are in the kind of turning of the bike. So it changes the amount of force it gives to go back to center, and yeah, effectively it is always just applying a force to bring the front wheel back to center, which it has a number of benefits which we'll kind of chat about. Certainly from the first kind of riding impressions, it's been very interesting. Whether or not it's going to be the next absolute biggest thing, I'm not sure, but it certainly hasn't had any drawbacks. We've been riding with the system the last couple of days, and you have the ability, the option to turn it off. Obviously, part of riding, you always want to be enjoying it, and you don't want to be fighting the bike. Let's quickly talk about kind of what it does, how it feels, and we'll take it out onto the trails, and you can kind of see it in action. So really, there's too much to cover in the video. That some of it got real deep and technical. I'll try and cover that. I made some notes. I'll try and cover that in the article. So hit the website, which the article should be live if you're seeing this video, and you can read a little bit more into the theory and the physics behind it. But essentially, there's a couple of things that they are trying to solve, or a couple of particular benefits that they are claiming the system to give. The first of which is giving a counter force to the wheel flop. So as you're turning the front wheel, obviously with especially with a slacker head angle, the wheel will develop a certain kind of translation of the handlebar downwards, which is known as wheel flop. And then because of that, you then, to right the bike back up, you have to lift the front end back up. But of course, the force to do so means that you also have to lift up the component of your weight that's acting on the head tube. So, there's a lot more force to it than you would kind of think, especially if you're sort of just feeling it when you're off of the bike. When you're on the bike, there is actually quite a lot of force that needs to be put into the bike to bring it back up to center. So what this system is doing is aiding you with that. It's not going to completely make it so that the bike will only stand up straight. It's not super stiff. It is tunable as well. So you can see there's a sliding scale. I've got it maxed out because I'm quite heavy and because I want to really feel the system and its influence as much as I can. But yeah, so the wheel flop is one thing that they're trying to overcome. The other thing, and I think a benefit that I've been feeling more so out here in the south of France, where the trails are really dry and dusty, is the loose terrain sort of confidence that it gives you for a couple of reasons. Number one being, when you're in super loose terrain, especially if your front wheel is kind of washing out, effectively you've got no feedback of where the front wheel is in relation to your distance of travel, so your direction of travel. So what the system is doing is giving you a midpoint, a natural center of the bike that you can kind of feel in your hands, and helping you just kind of correct it back to center a little bit easier. And the sort of second connected benefit of it is the connection that it effectively gives between your front and rear wheels. So they sort of likened it to being able to turn the bike like a ski almost in loose terrain. Whether it has exactly felt like that, I don't know. Maybe I've just not been drifting it well enough. Potentially the system isn't quite tightly sprung enough for my heavy weight, but certainly there's something to do with that, and I really wanted to kind of feel the merits of that. I don't think from this first couple of rides I've quite felt that yet, but it's definitely something I think with a little bit more time on the system, and especially going from having the system on and then turned off and then back on again, you may begin to feel over time, but really the longer term will tell. But I think it's a really interesting theory, especially, you know, if the bike was to step out, say, and you've lost traction of the rear wheel entirely, having the sort of connection of the front and rear wheels, or the handlebar and the rear wheel, will allow you to bring the bike back in and back in line easier. So I think it's really interesting, and I'm definitely more interested or excited to get more time on it out on the trails to really get a feel for it. All right, let's get this thing dialed up. Rip. They're big. So, let's try find how this thing affects the climbing then. At the moment, it does feel very stable. Just having to give it very little input to keep it straight. Now I'm just going to flick it off into that position there. Straight away it does feel a lot more active, and oh yeah. Wow, this terrain is freaking amazing. Oh, what a trail! Woo. Well, it's safe to say that the first ride on the K.I.S system has been really interesting out here in the south of France. Yeah, it's the kind of system that the difference it's making to how you ride, the difference it's making to the feel of the bike, almost blends into the background after the first couple of turns. Certainly the first couple of trails that we were riding that were really kind of low speed, with a lot of handlebar turning, instead of just more leaning that you would normally get on a faster trail. You could feel the resistance, and it did lead me to kind of go a little bit wide in the first couple of turns. But once you got used to that and to the resistance and to how much you have to push the bars to initiate the kind of turns at lower speeds, then it just kind of becomes the feeling of the handling. It's almost like if you have a slacker head angle, or yeah, just any other kind of difference to the handling of the bike. What it's done really is turned that spectral, kind of generally the feeling's the same. Generally the feeling still feels like the all mountain bike that it is, but the handling, the steering, the way that it kind of initiates a turn, especially at a lower speed, for the most part feels more towards the enduro side of things, with that little bit more resistance that kind of exudes the feeling of stability and confidence and safety, which is quite nice. But then you don't lose any of the agility to get yourself up a technical climb. You don't lose any of your kind of quick handling on the slower speed trails or the tighter trails once you get used to the resistance and how much you have to push it against it. It does definitely stabilize the handling when you're climbing. You just have to give the bars a little bit less input to keep that wheel tracking in a straight line as you're climbing, which is quite nice and probably saving you a bit of energy. It definitely, the feeling is there to be seen. I think my weight is maybe on the upper end of the scale for what this thing is set up for, and even in the stiffest setting I think I could probably go even firmer still to get more of the benefits of the sort of connection between the handlebar and the rear wheel that it is kind of sort of been touted to give. But I don't hate it. I definitely wouldn't be kind of immediately reaching to turn it off or to take it off of the bike if I did get a bike that it came on. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the system develops over time as bikes are designed around it instead of it being added to an existing bike. I think it's really going to be, yeah, interesting to see the adoption by other companies as well. So this system is only going to be available on Canyon and Lightville bikes for year one. So they've got a whole year of exclusive rights to the bike. And then after that, other companies can purchase the rights to it to fit it on their own bike. So it's going to be really interesting at the end of year one to see which companies have done so, and yeah, to see what the bikes turn out like to be designed around the system. Hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video, and do hit the website to check out my article where I'll be explaining a little bit more about the system and how it works and the kind of physics behind it. And stay tuned for the long-term review where hopefully we'll be getting one of these to put onto trails that we're a bit more familiar with and see how it performs over the long term, and really see how how our kind of impressions change as we spend a little bit more time and it becomes even more familiar to us. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Give us a like if you've enjoyed the video, leave us a comment, let us know your thoughts. Is this the next big thing in mountain biking? Who knows? And subscribe to the channel to see more awesome content and awesome tech like this. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hope to catch you out on the trails.